Last month, we spent 4 weeks tending. We practiced noticing instead of fixing. We honored the awkward space between. We learned to create conditions instead of forcing outcomes. And if you've been here with me through any of that, something has shifted. Maybe you cleared some space. Maybe you've noticed what's growing. And now you might be wondering, okay, I've tended, I've noticed, I've created conditions. Now what? When do I actually do something? And here's what I want to talk to you about today. Sometimes you're ready to begin before you feel ready to begin. Sometimes the soil is ready, the conditions are right, the timing has arrived, but you don't feel ready. You don't feel confident. You don't feel certain. And you think that means you should wait. But what if it doesn't? What if you're ready to begin even when you're not? Here's what I've been learning. There's a difference between forcing something before it's ready and beginning something even though you don't feel ready. Forcing is pushing a seed to sprout before it's had time in the soil, pulling at shoots to make them grow faster, demanding blooms out of season. Beginning is planting the seed even though you're not sure it will grow, watering even though you can't see the results yet, tending even though you don't know what will emerge. Forcing says, make it happen now, control the outcome, skip the process. Beginning says, take the first step, trust the conditions, and let the process unfold. Forcing comes from fear and urgency, while beginning comes from trust and readiness, even when you don't feel ready. And I think most of us confuse the two. We think if I don't feel ready, I must be forcing it. But sometimes the opposite is true. Sometimes you don't feel ready because you're about to begin something real, and real things are scary. A few weeks ago, I opened registration for the March 29th gathering, and I didn't feel ready. I didn't feel ready to hold space for people. I didn't feel confident that what I was offering would land. I kept thinking, maybe I should wait. Maybe I should practice more. Maybe I should feel more certain before I invite people into this. But here's what I noticed: the conditions were ready. I'd been tending this work for months. I'd been practicing noticing, creating rituals, learning to hold space. The soil was prepared. The timing was right. I wasn't ready, but the work was. So I began anyway. I opened registration. I showed up. I held space for people. And you know what happened? It worked. Not because I felt ready, not because I had it all figured out, but because I trusted the conditions I'd created, because I took the first step, even though I was uncertain. Because sometimes you're ready to begin before you feel ready to begin. Here's what I used to think readiness felt like: confidence, certainty, clarity about every step, no doubt, and no fear. And I'd wait for that feeling before I'd begin anything. But here's what I've learned: that feeling almost never comes. Or if it does, it comes after you begin, not before. Readiness doesn't feel like certainty. Readiness feels like the conditions are aligned, even if you're nervous. You've done the preparation, even if you don't feel confident. The timing feels right, even if you're scared. You have a clear next step, even if you can't see the whole path. Something inside you says now, even if another part says wait. Readiness is not the absence of fear. Readiness is the presence of conditions and the willingness to trust them. So, how do you know the difference? How do you know if you're forcing something that's not ready or beginning something even though you're not ready? Here's what I ask myself: one, have I tended the soil? Forcing skips the preparation, beginning honors it. If you've been tending, noticing, creating conditions, doing the inner work, you're not forcing, you're beginning. Two, am I rushing this because I'm afraid? Forcing is driven by urgency. I have to do this now. Beginning is driven by trust. This feels like the right time, even though I'm nervous. Three, can I see a clear first step? Forcing tries to control the entire journey. Beginning just needs to see the next step. 4, what does my body say? And this is a big one. Forcing feels tight, constricted, like you're pushing against something. Beginning feels expansive, open, like you're stepping into something. Your body knows the difference. 5, am I attached to the outcome? Forcing needs a specific result. Beginning is open to what emerges. If you can take the step without needing to control what comes next, you're beginning. Here's what stops most of us from beginning. We think the first step has to be significant, impressive, perfect, even. We think if I'm going to start, I need to start big. But beginning doesn't work that way. The first step just has to be the first step. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to look like progress to anyone else. It just has to be one small movement toward the thing that's ready to begin. Maybe it's sending the email you've been drafting for weeks. Maybe it's having the conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's posting the thing even though it's not perfect. Maybe it's asking for what you need even though your voice shakes. Maybe it's showing up even though you don't feel ready. The first step doesn't have to be big, it just has to be honest. So I'm ready to begin something I don't feel ready for. In May, I'm hosting an in person gathering, Rise Through the Roots. And honestly, I'm a little terrified. I don't feel ready to hold space for people in real time, in real bodies, in the same space. I don't feel confident that I know what I'm doing. But here's what I do know: the conditions are ready. I've been tending this work, I've been practicing, I've been creating the foundation. The timing feels right, the invitation feels clear. The first step is visible. I'm not ready, but the work is. So I'm beginning anyway. Registration opens soon. Details are in the description below. And if you're ready to begin something, even though you don't feel ready, I'd love to practice this with you. So here's my question for you: what's ready to begin, even though you're not? What have you been tending that's asking for a first step? You don't have to feel ready. You just have to trust the soil you've prepared and then begin. I'll see you next week.